Welcome to the Dominance Academy, where we specialize in revitalizing manhood and leadership. Our approach focuses on developing men to lead with strength and passion, enriching their lives and their families. We provide practical solutions and expert guidance in the realms of sexual education and the mysteries behind polarity and structured power dynamics. Join us at thedominanceacademy.com and restore harmony to your home while rediscovering the joy of a fulfilling masculine presence. It's time to step into your role as a leader and as a man. And now, the host of the show, Mr. Justin.
And I forgot to grab my water, so just excuse me just for a moment. All right, we're back. Hope your day's going well. And I came in today to, oh boy, the dog's going crazy. Hold on one second. Jeez. All at once, the dog walker comes and Amazon at the same time. Okay. All right, hopefully no more disturbances for the show. Okay, so I'm talking about Simps. You know, this has been kicked into the ground, but you know, let's face it, more and more Simps are built every day, and a lot of you guys are still just coping with this idea because you know, dudes will be like, all right, well, I don't want to be perceived as a simp. I don't want to admit to myself that I'm a simp or an incel or whatever, nice guy. And so I'm going to force myself to not do all of the things that I used to do or that's being talked about on social media, and to kind of justify and prove to myself that I'm not this way. And so I'm going to swear off or push away women. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And the funny thing is that when you specifically push back against something, you inadvertently strengthen that something that you're pushing against. It's kind of ironic the way it works that way. God, my beard's fucking crazy today. But yeah, that's how it goes. You know, so you really gotta, like, it's not a pushing. So pushing is the same as pulling. All right. It's really just a letting go. And it's a gentle release. And this wisdom applies to many, many things in life that have to do with your internal frameworks and how things control you. Just remember, the things that you push away are still in control of you because you're deciding based on that thing to push. And we all know that the things that we're pulling, that we are perhaps like, you know, obsessed about or what have you, this is going to control you as well because it's affecting your decision making and things of that nature. So, you know, we're going to talk about the psychological aspects that are behind boys who are raised without fathers, the boys that are raised with single mothers. And we're not going to get into why the single mothers are there, because there's a number of different reasons. And we're not going to get into that. And namely because I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's helpful to find a scapegoat or to play the blame game. It's important to just see what is and understand what gets developed. What's up, Dukalux? And what's up, everybody watching here on the live stream? So as I continue through this, if you find that it provides value for you, please make a stop over to the website at thedominanceacademy.com. So what happens when a mother either leaves the father of her son, or the father leaves the mother of his son? What exactly develops between that male child and his mother? And certainly some good things can come of it. Okay, I've met a number of decent, law-abiding citizens that have been raised with only a mom, right? So it doesn't necessarily get determined that you're doomed as a human being. Okay, that's not the case. What happens is there becomes a skewed or a misdeveloped or warped relationship to the female archetype, and that's where the problems start propelling into the future. Okay, so we all know basic characteristics of nice guys, of simps, and they are namely deceitful, needy, and ashamed. And this is something that sticks with guys, and it's in relationship to having only a mother raising him. Okay, because the child, like children, they all learn deceit. They learn how to deceive their parents, and children are naturally needy because that's just the state of a child, and they also learn shame. And they learn shame about their desires, the things that they want. They just learn shame around a whole host of subjects, okay? And they learn to feel bad for letting their ego determine, how they move and what they go after, right? So the thing is, when there is no father there and the child is growing up with just the mom, often is the case that these three characteristics of being deceitful, needy, and ashamed, they don't go away. This is the problem. This is the problem. What's up, Kabura? Kabura Train. So what happens is the child grows up, doesn't work through and develop out of these stages or these characteristics, and they carry with them through their teenage life and their adult life. And this is a problem. This is a problem. I have to do something with this package real quick. Just hold tight and I will be right back. Damn, I feel like I'm working at the freaking USPS office. Just one of those days, I guess. So back to the development. So what happens is the guy doesn't doesn't ever learn to let go of these things. He doesn't develop past them. And he continues them through his life. And they no longer become childish deceptions. They become adult deceptions. The neediness is not childish neediness. It's adult neediness. And same for being ashamed. Okay. So these things just don't go away. And they, and obviously with their presence, it creates really screwed up relationships because they've got this screwed up relationship with themselves, which is, you know, internally attached to the female archetype of mother. Okay. And so, you know, a lot of nice guys, they're very used to lying. And, you know, we all know of their neediness. And all of this stuff, like the neediness, the deception, and the shame, it's all related to their desire for acceptance, their desire for acceptance and approval of the female archetype, which is not like a current, like, young woman or something like that. They'll see that, but psychologically, like unconsciously, this is attached all the way back to mom. You know, because the female archetype has never shifted away from mom. It never became something else. So they've got this really weird internal relationship, and all of their actions, whether it's, you know, being deceitful or needy or what have you, they can, they're all there just to make sure that he is accepted, that he's approved of in her world. Okay. And then, so what happens, like, through this is, like, the boy, as he's growing up under the wing of his mother only, is that there's a couple of things. One is that he is often given responsibilities of the man of the house. And often they will hear this. Like, I've interviewed hundreds of guys, and I asked them, have you ever been told by your mom that you are now the man of the house? Like, once they've reached a certain age. And this could be as young as like 7 years old. Like, a 7-year-old boy is now told by his mom, you are now the man of the house. And what this does is it robs them of their childhood. So it robs them of their child experience, which is just to learn, to be cared for, and to have fun, and to experiment and observe life. That's all a child really does. Okay. But they're now burdened with responsibilities, and they're shown and ushered into a certain type of thinking and framework that is very much not childlike. Okay, so they're becoming this, like, pseudo adult child thing. Okay, and so they're robbed of that childhood experience, and they're put into this framework that is not entirely healthy for their development. Okay. Children need to be free. They need to not have the concerns and the responsibilities of adults. Like, it's not fair. Okay. They're 7 years old. So, and you teach them responsibility gradually over time within their context of being a child. Okay. So through that, what happens is the male child then develops a codependent relationship with his mom, because while she's needing him to do certain things, he's now, you know, obviously parent to child relationship, he sees her as an authority, as, you know, most children do. So now with this codependent relationship there, he's now being, like, conditioned over time to do these certain things and be a certain way, talk a certain way, behave a certain way, and fulfill certain tasks in order to maintain his approval that he gets from her. And this doesn't go away. This is where the nice guy syndrome, the symptom, grows into. So it starts off when they're very young, and he's trying to gain the approval of his mom because she's the only authority figure. And that's not necessarily the problem, right? I think it's perfectly fine for a child to seek the approval of their parents. The problem is that the umbilical cord isn't cut, and that's what the presence of a father does. The father, ideally speaking, is the one who comes in and severs that umbilical cord. Then he exposes the child to, the real world, or some of the strains of the real world, and teaches him how to cope without that umbilical cord. And he learns, incredibly important and useful mental and emotional skills to deal with the strains of the world. And this cannot really happen very well if he's got that umbilical cord attached to him. So this is the problem when there isn't a good father in the mix, okay? So he continues on and has this codependent relationship with the mother in actual real time. But then as he grows, he leaves the home, he goes to college or starts work or whatever, and he becomes a young adult, and now he's a full-on grown adult. That umbilical cord just simply starts stretching. It starts stretching through time and space, and it's never been cut. And now he's no longer under the actual wing of his true mother. It now shifts, the energy shifts into an archetypal level. And he still has the unconscious psychological framework and the emotional framework that has built up over time with his mother, which now is, becomes an archetype. And now he's involving himself with women his own age or around his own age, and he's all messed up. He's got this still codependent relationship. So what you'll find, and what many women have found in dealing with certain guys, is that, and you hear this when they say like, oh, I want a real man. Okay. And they're not really getting into it much because they're coming at it from an emotional perspective, not a purely psychological perspective. But they feel it, right? They feel that something's wrong. And the feeling they're getting is from his codependent nature, that he's looking to her for approval. She can feel that he's insecure. She can feel that he's looking for her validation, that he's looking for her approval. And then inadvertently, what that does is it says without saying, I believe in your standard. I want to follow your standard. I'm trying to become part of your team. Please approve of me. I need that approval. And then when he gets that, from a woman who is either not aware of these things or just, isn't paying attention to this sort of stuff or just doesn't mind at the moment. And, she thinks, oh, he's just such a nice, great guy. And like, he's so sweet. But then over time, it starts grating on her. It really does. And, then there's a decision of like, okay, we spent enough time, like maybe they got married, there's kids involved, there's houses, there's stuff, there's money, there's assets. It's like, she's like, oh shit, like, well, he's so great, he's nice, but like, he doesn't do it for me. He doesn't have that ish. He's still this great guy, but he's lacking in something. And she can feel that codependent, needy nature. And she's probably come across his deception in varying degrees throughout time. And this is just, it's destructive. This does not bring out the best in women. And it, actually makes them shrink back and detach a little bit. And now she's starting to look at the situation and analyze it and see, do I really want to be in this? And then it's like, okay, now, Chuck from accounting is flirting with her and she's thinking, oh yeah, I would love to go out for a drink with him after work. And she's like, oh honey, there's a late meeting. I'll be home, a couple hours later. And he's like, okay, dear, no problem. I'll have dinner waiting for you, or I'll just keep it warm. And that sort of thing. And then she goes off with Chuck and, has a good time. And she's feeling, a man who she perceives at the very least as being less needy, less deceptive, and less ashamed of who he is. And then, there's an affair that happens, maybe it's an emotional affair or maybe it's a physical affair, but an affair nonetheless. And a quick bit about the shame, being ashamed of oneself. The thing is that the boy, I think it's possible that without the presence of the father teaching him about sexuality, is that it's something that as he grows, because the boy slowly becomes a man, and part of becoming a man is becoming sexual, is becoming, having the ability to procreate and have sex. And if this is like something this is something they learn to hide from the woman, hide from his mother, okay? Because like, oh shoot, like she's not going to approve of this. She's not going to approve of me, wanting to stick my penis in girls, right? She's not going to approve of this sort of thing. And so that disapproval, or that perceived disapproval, because she may or may not have said anything. Some mothers will straight up like tell boys about how they should behave around women and make them feel bad for their impulses. Whereas like a father would be like, oh yeah, you like that girl? Like go walk up to her, tell her she's hot, take her hand and tell her you'd like to, ask her out for ice cream or something like that. Like being assertive with that sexual energy. And the mother's going to teach him not to be assertive with that sexual energy. Okay. So he's going to have these conflicting impulses, right? The natural human impulse to be guided by his growing hormones, and then his need to be approved of by his mom. So then how this translates down the road is that when he's with a woman, these guys have an awful time being able to express their sexual desires for a woman. However, when they're in private, they're like voracious masturbators. These guys they're the ones who are most likely to be addicted to pornography, because they have this desire, but it's the secret thing that they kind of keep to themselves, even though it's like, duh, everybody knows that if you're a healthy, heterosexual male, you're going to want to fuck women. Like that's just part of your makeup. That's part of being the male species. Okay. So, but this is something that he has learned. Pardon me. So this is something that he's learned to hide. That it's something that is to be ashamed of. That's something that girls don't like. The girls don't like sexuality. They don't like to be approached by guys. They don't like to be spoken to in ways that insinuate sexual interest. Okay. And so they hide this sort of thing. And then they're the type of guys who are, say, willing to take a woman out on a date or take her on a trip somewhere. And she's like, listen, I'm not having sex with you. And he's like, okay, that's fine. Like, that's not why I'm doing this. I really just want to get to know you. And he's denying his nature. He's denying his real impulse, which is, I'm attracted to you. I would like to have sex with you. I want to touch you. I want to smell you. I want to taste you. I want to hold you in my arms. I want to kiss you all over. This is real. This is there, but he denies this of himself, and then makes this whole like make-believe concocted scenario communication that he's not there for that, even though she's no dummy and knows that he is. So there's this layer of communication that they both know is a lie. They both know it's a lie. And he's like either super convinced that she can't tell because he's drinking his own Kool-Aid, or, he knows that he's lying, and then this causes internal strain. Let me see what your comments here. What's up, Shepard? King Solar Power, I see you. Yeah, he's King Solar Power. Yeah, you put an E on my name. It's Justine. But that's all right. That shit's been happening for years. So yeah, there's so many problems that come from being raised by just a mother and not having a strong fatherly presence in your life. And it doesn't necessarily mean, like, just because a dad is there doesn't mean you're immune to this. Okay, because many fathers are nice guys as well. They're simps as well. So they will they'll basically be like wet towels in the relationship. There's just a wet towel. Like, you ever like have like a soaking wet towel from like end to end, and you drop it on the ground, it just like slops down to the ground. Like, that's how a lot of fathers are. That's the way a lot of husbands are. They're like a fucking wet towel. They're sopping wet, and you kind of don't want to deal with it. You just kind of like let it be there, you know? So looking to, you know, how this is, how this affects women. Okay. Women, and I talked a little bit about this the other day, about their, you know, their desires or fantasies and things of that nature, and what moves them emotionally. And it's it can easily be found in romance novels. Okay, and I mention this a lot. So like, look into the publisher called Harlequin. All right, they're the most famous publisher of romance novels, Harlequin romance novels, and it started out as being like pretty tame years ago. I think like maybe in the 80s, or maybe the late 70s. But Harlequin romance novels started out being pretty tame, and there was only just like innuendo towards sexual stuff. And then over time, things developed, and now they've become much more overt, and they produce things that are very sexual, very blatant, and have elements of aggression in them. Okay. And there's a pattern throughout these, and there's 5 basic archetypes that are used for the men in these stories, and that is the vampire, the werewolf, the pirate, the billionaire, and the surgeon. I don't know why the surgeon. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just somebody who's like very precise and, you know, focused on. I don't know. I have no idea what it is. Why the surgeon? But the surgeon is like a super common archetype. So the thing is about what's common amongst all of these things is that you've got an aggressive being, essentially. Okay. One second. I'm just trying to find this thing that I wrote about this sort of thing. It's going to be my book about how to be a fantastic lover. In the chapter about 50 Shades. So what they all embody, I mean, like on the surface, they're all different. Okay. But they all have one basic thing in common, and which is that they embody the male aggression and predatory dominance in some form or fashion. So whether it's like a physical dominance, like say like the werewolf, okay, and we see this say with the character of Wolverine, all right, or it's some sort of social dominance, say maybe like the surgeon or the billionaire, okay. And then, so on a basic level, the romance stories that come from this are basically about a beautiful young woman who encounters one of these male archetypes and then tames him. She takes that raw animalistic fire and tames that into something that's more manageable. All right. And this is the primary fantasy amongst women on a very foundational level. Okay. They want a beast that has a hidden heart of gold that she can bring out because she's special. There's something about her mind, the way she carries herself, her magic little pussy that opens him up, and she brings out that heart of gold that only she perceives and she benefits from. Or perhaps if they have children, okay? Everybody else, they get the beast. All right. So this is the problem, okay? Because well, so the thing is that there's like in that scenario, there's a bit of excitement and draw and drive for women to tame this beast. Okay. So what the question then is, what can come from taming a man who's already tame. And this, therein lies the problem of boys who are raised with only mothers and they have that umbilical cord still attached. Because they learn to be tame. They learn to bring down their natural masculine impulses to build, explore, fuck around, break shit, and let their masculine desires go out. And they're like, I want to grab life. I want to do stuff. I want to explore. And part of that is I want to penetrate, right? I want to penetrate the world. I want to get in there and see what I can do. And this is why boys are just more risk takers. The higher your testosterone, what studies have shown, the greater risks you take. You take far more risks than say a woman does, because one of the factors is that there's lower testosterone in women. So this is what gets tamped down in boys, or sometimes it gets extinguished completely through shame. They get shamed into that position, shamed to have these impulses and these drives, which are very, very natural and beneficial for the world. They're beneficial for families. They're beneficial for women. Okay. And, it's that woman that, she has the opposite kind of impulses to see that, grab it, and seduce him and charm him into her field so that she can then extract that heart of gold and make him a bit peaceful. Okay. But only in her presence. Okay. Only from her. So then going back to my question, what can come from taming a man who's already tame? So that you have this very natural and very common drive, at least on a fantasy level, from women to tame the beast. But if the man's arriving with no beast and who's already tame, what does she have to do? There's nothing to be done. He's looking to be taken care of. He's looking to be coddled. He's looking for his head to be brushed and held against her breast and to be told that life is going to be okay. And like maybe for a short time, that's charming. Okay. But this does not move her this is maybe moves her on like a caretaker level, but not on a deep foundational sexual level. I must have this man's babies. Okay. And, whether that actually happens or not is irrelevant. Okay. It's more about the impulse, like the primal impulse behind it. And so if a guy's arriving that's already tame, it's like, there's no fun. And who wants a tame man anyways? Women don't want tame men. Now, on the flip side, they find men who are not tame exhausting, because they cannot tame them. They cannot bring them in, and they fall for these guys. Their heart falls for them, especially if they're having sex with them. And they're like, oh my gosh, I get wrapped into this. And, some of these stories, like these romance stories, this is what happens. And, the man is like, holding her, and he's like, I'm sorry, darling, but I have to leave to go to war. I have to leave to go on this adventure. I have to go leave to, fulfill this quest that I'm on, or whatever. Okay. And then she's left with this yearning. Okay. And there is some magic to that yearning that he cannot be tamed. He wasn't like, oh yeah, I love you. You've opened up my heart. I'm going to just stay with you. Like this is, ultimately what she wants, but this is not what happens a lot of times. So, women are drawn towards these guys who have these untamable traits, these untamable characteristics, which is incredibly attractive. But, ultimately it has a fairly short road. It doesn't continue on into the future for years. Okay. And, because, largely women don't want to stay on the market indefinitely. Most women, just like most guys want a relationship, most women want a relationship too, right? It's built into their genetics to procreate and so on. And emotionally, They don't like just free flowing out here indefinitely. I think most women, if you ask them, would you like to be on the market forever or would you like to get into a relationship? They would opt for the relationship. They don't want to be out here all the time. Not forever. So regardless of how comfortable they are on the market, okay? So, so the, that's really like, what they're after. And so with guys coming in with this nice guy virus being developed inside them, and then they arrive as being super tame, super easygoing, very much willing to do whatever she wants because he's deeply psychologically seeking her approval. He's nothing to her. There's no challenge there. So, and you hear women say this. You hear women say this quite often, that they would like a man who's a challenge. Or you hear other guys saying this to you guys, saying women like guys who are a challenge. And this is on a very basic level what we're talking about. And unfortunately, dudes will they'll misinterpret that, and they'll concoct scenarios that make them challenging. Like for instance, the woman wants to speak with him more often. All right, so this happened with with a client of mine. He was talking to a couple of girls, and this one girl expected him to communicate with her on a daily basis, and they're not even like in a relationship, right? Like they went on 2 dates, and she was like, I need to talk to you every day. This is what I expect. And so to create a power differential, he was like, well, I don't communicate. I don't communicate all the time. I'm not that type of person, right? Like when I want to see you, I'll just message you and, a couple days in advance, and we'll set something up. And, and of course she wasn't having it. And so sometimes, people the guys will do this sort of thing in order to create a power differential. They're kind of, they're manufacturing it, and this is ultimately not real. Okay, so they're attempting to create a scenario that allows them to be perceived as challenging, when it really needs to come from your nature. And it's not a sort of thing where like you fake it till you make it. Like you genuinely have to not give a shit. You have to genuinely just not be interested in whatever, and basically like genuinely not interested in going towards their desires. Man, I hope my dog doesn't start barking like crazy. Yes, Dukalux, there is a difference in being kind and being a simp. Simps are seeking, and they use kindness to get something. They're doing it to extract something. Kindness is done through observation, and kindness is something that is done for the sake of kindness, or done for the sake of helping somebody without thinking that there's going to be any kind of reciprocation or reward. Or kindness is done out of making sure that the receiver has earned it. Because some people see that kindness is a gift. It's not a right. It's something that is earned. Okay. Respect on a general human level, that's a right. But beyond those things, anything beyond that, that's not a right. It's not it's a privilege, and privileges are often earned. So let's see here. Daniel Victor here says, it was my aunts and my sisters that created that dilemma that you're talking about for me. My mom was always all right with me expressing sexual interest with women. That's good. Yeah, it's not a formula that goes across all boards. I'm just talking about something that is something that's super common. It's super common. Oh, for fuck's sake, this dog. I've got myself a year and a half old puppy, and he just doesn't have bark control. So, right. So, so you're right. Like your experience can be different, but it's super common across the board. But it's not for everybody. It's not everybody. So, this is really just in a nutshell the basic problems of having boys being raised only by moms. Is that the potential for fucked up shit is really high. It's really, really high. And you don't end up serving yourself very well, and you don't end up serving women very well. Like, basically, everybody loses with nice guys. Everybody. Like, kids lose. The woman loses. The man loses. And, it's sometimes really hard to break out of these things, because one of the things that the nice guy virus does is it encourages you or forms you into always wanting to be perfect. All right. And that comes from looking at the desires and wishes of women, which again, like, goes back to mom, and wanting to meet that. So you're always seen as acceptable. And when you're always looking at things in this fashion and acting towards it, this creates this need for always wanting to not make mistakes, always being perceived as good, perfect, and acceptable. And really what this does is, as the years go on, is that it takes you further and further away from yourself. And I've worked with guys who are in their 50s and 60s, and they're just now coming to terms with this after having been married 2 or 3 times, and everything just kind of falls apart at their feet. And they're like, fuck, what do I do? What's going on here? Because they come to an understanding that they are the common denominator. That through all of their situations, and younger guys have a more difficult time with this, but as you get older, you get more wise, and you start thinking like, well, it must be me. It must be me or something going on with me that's causing the same sort of shit to happen again and again and again. Young guys, right? And I partially blame social media. Their reluctance to look at themselves and blame themselves, and they think, well, I'm special. I'm great. Okay, and this is part of the nice guy delusion, is that you think that you're great. You think that just you're the fucking cat's pajamas, and because you're not violent, you're kind, you're nice, you're tame. Okay, you're a non-threat. Why wouldn't a woman like you? You would be there. You would easily marry her. You would easily take care of her kids. You would easily give her children. You would easily work and, be providing and all of this stuff. And you've got a good heart. You're genuinely like a good guy. Okay. But they're not checking for you. They're not choosing you. So obviously there must be something wrong with them. You're special, and everybody else is messed up. Now, what are the chances of that? What are the chances of that? It's probably pretty slim. I mean, unless you're this like God's gift of fantastic dude, and all these women are fucked up, and that's why you're having problems getting relationships started or keeping your relationships. I think you're deluding yourself. And a lot of guys are delusional. They think they're great dudes when you're not. And it's only when you accept that you're not a great dude and then go further and investigate your shadow and what do they call that? Integrate your shadow into your conscious awareness. And you realize, you know what? Like as Jordan Peterson says, I've got snakes in me. I'm full of snakes. Absolutely. And, that's when you actually start being yourself for the first time. When you get away from this delusion that you're some kind of special entity on this planet, that women should be, attracted to and women should want, and that sort of thing. Like that's just crazy. But you guys do it. You do it. You look in the mirror and you think, I'm fucking awesome. You think, I'm great. There's nothing wrong with me. Everything's wrong with the women. And it's not the case. But, nice guys, they will do all the pouring over YouTube videos. They will commiserate with other guys who are just like them, which only solidifies the delusion even more. Because they're just birds of a feather, right? They come together and then they're all just commiserating with each other's delusions. And they're like, yeah, no, you're great, man, brother. A lot of these guys do that. Like if you ever find yourself in like a MGTOW group, everybody's brother. Yeah, brother. We're great. All these women, they're fucked up. And they don't realize that women are responsive creatures. They treat you differently than they would treat somebody else because they respond differently. If she's around a violent jerk, then she's going to respond differently towards, a nice, like a really nice, easygoing guy, or a man who's bold versus a man who's shy, a guy who's aggressive, a guy who's passive. She's going to respond differently to these guys. And like for those that are uninitiated, they'll say to themselves, well, that's just stupid. That just means they're disingenuous. They're like children. They don't know who they are, right? Because guys, we're like pretty constant. Whether you're deluded or not, we're pretty constant in our behaviors and our personality. Okay? Women are very adept at shifting and morphing and changing things around. You see this in high school, right? I remember, like in high school, there's cliques, there's groups. There's like the skater group. There's the, when I was growing up, it was like the skaters. You had the metalheads. You had the break dancers. You had the jocks. You had the cheerleaders. You had the weirdo art kids. You had the super math nerds, and they all kind of had their groups and cliques. And if a girl were to go into one of those, she starts dating a skater. And then it's like there's this quick transition, and now she's dressing like a skater. She's got the baggy jeans, she's got the skate shoes. Maybe she even has a board that she just kind of carries around with her because she wants to look cute. And maybe during skate sessions, she pushes around a little bit, but, nothing fancy. And then she starts dating metalhead. And then the metalhead, she starts wearing dark clothes and, metal jewelry and shit like that, and dark eyeliner. And so they morph, they shift, depending on the influences around them. It's absolutely true. I've been delusional. It's good to be honest about that. We all have. Okay. I'm schizophrenic, but I've never talked about my delusions with other people. Okay. My delusion was closer to Steve mindset than anything else. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't really tend to spend much time analyzing anyone else but myself. So, I analyze myself, my kids. Even my woman, I don't really analyze her. Right? You don't have to. You don't have to analyze women at all. It's just like, is she following your direction or not? That's really just all it comes down to. Is that simple. But again, like if you've got this stuff, like all the stuff that I talked about, the formulation of the nice guy virus. If you are living with the nice guy virus, you have not expunged that from your system. that's going to warp your ability to give direction. Because someone who's codependent is not going to be equipped to lead. Like a leader, yes, I guess like philosophically speaking, a leader needs followers. So there is some sort of dependency there, at least on identity, like as far as like titles go and how the semantics works. But the relationship with himself won't change. He's not in need of a follower to feel better or to feel complete or to feel like a leader. Okay. He just is. And then when there's someone there, that gives him the opportunity to express this leadership. But if there's no person there to receive it, and there's no expression, that, you know, it's like you've got a painter who's been a painter for a while, and they're like, yes, I'm a painter, this is what I do. And then you take away their canvases, their oil paints, their paint brushes. Are they no longer a painter? Of course they are. They just don't have the opportunity to express themselves. Okay. So it's the same thing with leadership. And guys with nice guy virus will not develop this trait. Okay. Leadership is, you know, partially it's ingrained, you know, through upbringing, and partially it's a skill that can be learned. Okay. So if you don't have it, you don't think that you're doomed, because it just requires a mindset shift. It requires some character development. It requires some character undevelopment, right? Shit that you don't need, that's not helpful, that's not giving you value. And then learning the skills to lead. And there are absolutely skills for leadership. Corporations use them all the time. They have coaches who come in and teach executives how to lead. That's actually a space that I'm curious about getting into, is executive coaching. Unfortunately, they're the types that usually need these like certificates and things like that or whatever. So I'm thinking about getting a certificate in executive coaching, because I think that'd be a lot of fun to roll in with my stuff and connect with businesses and executive teams, and teaching them how to better lead themselves and their teams. So, but anyways, yeah, if you're tame, you know, you're really not going to be able to lead. And the funny thing is that like guys, they'll be, you know, guys with this virus, they are led by this desire to be with women. Like they really want to be in relationships, and they'll say that they want to be a leader. They'll say they want to have this responsibility. But I think that this only comes from an emotional place. They're just saying, I want to lead because they want to feel better. They want to feel important, because perhaps at this point they know that they're inadequate. So they want to like prove it to themselves and prove it to the woman that they can do it. But here's the thing, that's still operating as the child. That's still operating from the position of the child trying to prove it to his mommy that he's a big boy, right? He's trying to prove to mommy that he's a big boy. I can do it myself. I can tie my shoes myself. I don't need your help, mom. Right? And that's really what it is. That's so you can't like really, like guys, their delusion has layers. Their delusions have extreme layers. And this is why, you know, with my coaching in the academy, we spend so much time on the self before we get into things. Like all too often, guys are like, yeah, all right, show me how to, you know, tie bitches up and, you know, commands their minds and train them to have orgasm on command and, you know, all this fun stuff. And it's like the driver is more important than what's driven. It really is. Now, it kind of reminds me of that movie, The Blues Brothers, you know, with Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. And if you haven't seen it, it's a great classic. It's an awesome movie. And so they had a band, and then they were like bringing the band back together. They said they were on a mission from God, and it was all very interesting. And so they go into, you know, this area of, was it Chicago? I think it was Chicago, and they're looking for new musical instruments. And they go into this music shop, and Ray Charles is there, and he's the owner of the music store. And, you know, they're looking around at these used instruments, just kind of holding them, playing them a little bit, not really making a whole lot of noise or whatever. And the keyboardist for the band, he's there checking out a keyboard. And he's kind of messing with it a little bit. And Ray walks up to him and he's like, "Yeah, you like this keyboard?" And the dude's like, "Yeah, you know, it's pretty good, but it just seems like a little too used, like it's a little beat up, you know?" And Ray's like, "Let me check that out." And he kind of like pushes him aside, you know, turns the volume up on the keyboard and breaks out into playing. And then this transition to like a whole like Motown musical scene, and you know, and the song and the dancing, it all just really rips and it's great. And then the scene closes and the music stops and they go back to the, you know, the narrative, and Ray looks at him and he's like, "Seems all right to me." You know, and it's like, of course, like, you're fucking Ray Charles, like of course you're gonna play anything that's even remotely close to a piano extremely well. Okay. But that's kind of the point, right? It's not about what is driven. It comes down to who is driving it. And Ray can do this with any piano because he has full trust and faith in his abilities. He has complete trust in himself. He knows who he is. He knows what he's capable of. And he also knows what he's not capable of. But you put a piano in front of him and you better step back. And so that's the same sort of thing with this, you know, leadership, guidance, influence over a woman. You will not learn what to do with me until the you is established. Then I'll teach you how and what. The who is much more important. This is all it comes down to. And then you can put any piano in front of you and just rip. Basically, any woman can come to you who's willing to be on your program, and you can just play. You can express. You can lead. You can write songs. Take them on a journey of the mind, a journey of the heart, journey of the body. And it's no sweat off of your back. You know, it's like when Ray played that piano, it's not like he was sweating. He didn't break a sweat. This was him just breathing. It was him breathing through the piano. It was that effortless. Okay. And when your self is solid, what you do with a woman is effortless. There's no sweat on your brow when it comes to this sort of stuff. Hey, what's up, Uncle Guns? Good to see you, man. William Keem. If a woman starts complaining about her ex, I will just tell her, "Hey, whatever happened to you in the past has nothing to do with me," especially if it's our first meeting. Yeah, you can say that, you know, or you can tell her, "Would you rather talk about other people, or you'd like to talk about you and me?" And, you know, because saying something like that brings it back to that initial, the awareness of what it is that you're doing, right? And, or the same thing that happened, like if, you know, a woman asks you, you know, "Tell me about your last relationship." I don't know where you guys are coming up with this shit. Like, I have never been interviewed on a date. I've never been asked these ridiculous questions. I have been asked if I've been married or something along those lines, but only a long time ago. I haven't been asked that in a very long time. But or I've been asked if I have kids, you know, because that's pretty safe to assume considering my age. A lot of guys who are in their mid 40s, they'll have kids, but you know, so that's, you know, that's all right. But like these interview questions, you know, "Tell me about this, tell me about that." Like I don't remember having that shit. But anyways, so if a woman asks you, you know, "Tell me about your last relationship," or "How long was your last relationship? How long did that last?" You bring it back, you circle it back, like basically ignore it and bring their awareness back to this instance. And you say, "Would you like me to talk about other women, or do you want me to talk about you? Or do you want to talk about us?" Right? It's always great to frame the conversation in using like us and we. Okay. It's called a we frame or an us frame. So So yeah, you can say, would you like to talk about other women, or would you like to talk about us? And that really kind of and it's like a very slight shaming, okay, just very slight, just a little nick with a blade of shame, okay. Like, don't talk about other people. Like, you're almost like you're saying, like, you're dumb for talking about other women. Stay focused. This is what you're here for, isn't it? Okay. But if you do that, you better have some skill in leading the conversation so it stays talking about, the man-woman situation. It's fucking dog. It's like the bird flies by and it goes crazy. Tell you, I love dogs, but they're fucking assholes too. I like cats, and they're assholes as well. I think just animals can be just serious assholes. So, all right. So it's been an hour. I've been just not minding my time and going over an hour. I'm trying to make all my shows about an hour long. So I'm gonna pull this to a close here. I hope that this has been bringing you some value and some insight into the whole nice guy virus, to the simp syndrome, and where it comes from and how it affects your lives. And if you need help, if you notice that you have these patterns, if you need help in getting out of this virus and ridding it from your existence, get in touch with me. Shoot me an email at justin@thedominanceacademy.com, or you can go to the website thedominanceacademy.com, and we can get things rolling. You're laughing because I don't know why, but you're welcome to be happy. Maybe it's about the dogs and cats, but anyways, so yeah, I'm gonna pull this one to a close. I'm probably gonna stream again later tonight. Probably to bring in something a little bit more sexy and fun. We'll talk about maybe some power dynamic stuff, and maybe talk about spanking or some shit like that. But yeah, until then, you guys have a good and productive day. Don't be lazy. Get your grind on, and and keep prospering. Live long and prosper, as they say. All right, take it easy, and we'll see you later on tonight. Peace.